Bible numbering patterns. Are they there? I contend that there's a couple of analog farms in Genesis where we gather up some numbers. What happens if we do? Those 16 numbers are repeated a total of 3,973 times, almost 4,000 times in the Bible, just those 16 numbers right there. Welcome to the second video in a series on a big Genesis reveal. I'm going back into it, really digging into it deeply. There is more to Genesis than what meets the eye. For people that read it literally as history, you're carrying it. There is a template in there. For people that deny that there's anything to it, you're right that the stories are just really too far-fetched. They can't be true stories. However, I'll tell you the same thing as the theist. There's something in there that you don't know about. There's something that's being carried at a deeper level. There's multi-layers to the Bible, and the outer surface layer, the literal layer, the historical layer, that's just the surface. We need to look inside of it. Okay, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. I'll post a link to the first video below where I did an overview of how this works, of how Genesis is. You can see that it's derived from Babylonian works, that it's following a template, it's following a certain pattern of behavior in there, but that it's also, there's a numbering pattern that is emerging in Genesis that's kind of a mystery. Actually, there's parts of it that are a mystery. I can see what it's doing. However, there's a part of that in Genesis that I couldn't figure out. It was numbers that didn't quite seem to fit what I thought I saw was going on. You go to the Enuma Elish. The Babylonians had that weird numbering pattern in place before Genesis. So I'm showing how Genesis then was derived from that, how Genesis came from different authors, and that there's different pieces in there. I'm going to continue, and by different pieces, what I mean is that there's different templates. There's a creation that is from the first creation, from creation all the way up to where the flood needs to happen. That's an average human life cycle template right there, from birth to it's time to turn inward. That's a template for a human life cycle. Then when the flood happens, there's going to be this cyclical happening of going in and cleaning out oneself, purging over and over again. So there's a pattern that's being held in there, but it's a very obscure way, and it's being held in the numbering system. And in this video, what I'm going to do is show you the pattern of that numbering system. I'm going to try to describe that. It is so big that I'm trying to pick little bits and pieces of it that I can make sense out of, that I think I can show to people that won't take as much time, as it's such a big, huge thing. So take a look at this then. What I'm suggesting, if you've been following along, is there's a 3-7 grid that's starting at day 7, at that second creation story. There's 2 creation stories. And if you put them side by side, 7 days being said 3 times occurs simultaneously to Adam and Eve being naked, unashamed in the garden. And that represents us. I am, you are, any of us are Adam and Eve. That's our conscious, our higher self, and our inner self that we're going to accumulate our life experiences. Both of us, naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden, represents an early time in life where we had not yet covered ourselves with life experiences. We were naked. We were not covered. We didn't have shame, hurt, pain, anger. We didn't have those things accumulated yet. We were just happy little kids. And that's what naked represents. That's not physically naked. That means spiritually naked. I'm not covered with those things. Garden of Eden represents a happy place. First sin happens, 8. Right there, that represents like day 8. In the numbering sequence, that's what we're going to see, that day 7 and day 3 are a good thing. Let me back away from that for a little bit, though. If you take that numbering system out of it, don't even put it in there. If we're not going to do that numbering repeat, that number doesn't need to be there. Take that 3 and 7 out and just go to naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden. That represents each of us in our childhood, pure state, before we begin having life experiences and judging those life experiences, which first sin represents. And then we go on, and that there's a continuation of that until the world has to be destroyed. That represents our world. All of this is playing out in the mind, and all of the elements that are being described are actually analogous elements for the inside. So the world is my world. If we were to go to Taoism, one of the first teachings there is naming is the origin of all particular things. And you would go, what kind of strange stuff is that? It's the same teaching right there. That means what I have as an experience is the beginning of it. Once I'm old enough to begin having memories and developing memories and emotions with it, that is the naming of it. Naming is the beginning of all particular things. So right here, naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden, we had not yet named. When we start naming things, that would be equivalent to first sin. That means we are now going off and having experiences. What happens when that happens too, after that happens, is we cover up. We're no longer naked anymore. So that represents the idea that we're now covering up. If you translate it from the physical world and say, these are physical elements that represent something in my mind in a mental hierarchy. Now, each and every one of us, as we're playing out the story, does the same thing with it. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. When you take the story and you play it out in your mind, whoever the male is the consciousness. The female is the inner self. No matter who you are. It's a mental hierarchy it's written in stories, though, that make it sound like it's just life, doesn't it? Because it's a patriarchal society. Not everybody does that. The Greeks do it too. Well, they get everybody gets crass with it, actually. Yeah, Genesis gets bad too with the male and female daughters, virgins, take them. But yeah, okay. There's a lot of weird stuff going on. And it's because of that mental hierarchy. We have to know that. It's not about real life. It would be too weird. Then the story unfolds. It becomes interactive that way. You don't have to worship it. You can live it. It'll lead you on a path to inner peace. Now, I got to be careful. I run the risk of repeating so much. The videos just get too big. You really have to kind of follow along with probably in the sequence. If this is something that's kind of odd, just go back to the first video and it'll kind of catch you up to some things here that I'm just going to move on from. Okay, so now what happens is we've got that pattern. Now what is going to happen is we're going to have repeating pain cycles. That's where you will have pain in childbirth. We're going to go off and live life unaware of things. The man is going to go off and till the soil and, not reap the full benefits of life because he's, lost. Because if we look at it, it's a template of a human life, normal human life. We go off and live unaware. And then when we become aware, that's when we become Noah and turn inward and go, I want to resolve some of this stuff. I don't like the way I feel. My life isn't good. I need to flood out my world. So that's where the second template comes in. Again, more detail in the first video. Okay. So what's going on right here then is, well, that's fine. Now, how do we create a religion? While at the same time, we continue to maintain that template. We do not deviate from that template. That's the cycle, the template that we're seeing in the background. It's hard to see because the way they have it hidden in the numbering repeat that we're going to get to. But that template is going to repeat over and over and over again. The idea is that if you have to heal yourself, you don't just go, oh, I'm going to let everything go. It doesn't work. You can say that, but then stuff continues to act out. Typically, we have memories and emotions that are left unaddressed, that have emotional charges to them. If you go pull it up into your consciousness and you feel how it feels, that's how it's stored and it's acting out that way. We have to resolve those things. So the story is going to be patterned that way. You must go in and resolve something. Oh, I feel better about that. Now there's something else that I hadn't really thought about before, but now this bothers me next. You're going to go on this pattern of wanting to just resolve things if you're the seeking person. In fact, if you could understand that this is spiritual, covering up is hiding something inside of you. You start off with Adam and Eve, and then you're naked, unashamed, but then you get covered. You live life. After the flood, what happens? You are Noah. You're naked. You feel better. You're drunk on wine. You're naked. However, what happens is your offspring, more parts of you, come and cover you back up. It's going to continue. It's sequencing right there. That covering is not a physical covering. It's a spiritual I've got something to hide. So that is what is in the background of the teaching here. And how do they hide that? So they're doing it in a numbering system. I'm going to show you right here real quickly how they're gathering up some numbers and then how they're using them right within Genesis. And then we can jump to Job and see very quickly where they're replicating it there. Okay, up on the screen now I have the entire book of Genesis. What I want to show you here in this one is analog farms. These light blue areas that I have outlined here, this is Adam's lineage right here. Then we've got one after the Babel story, and down here, this is the Sodom story is where it starts in. And there's going to be a strange numbering pattern in all of them that doesn't match anything else in the Bible. These are where we're gathering up the numbers. This is where we stop and get the tools we need along the way for the story. Remembering the entire story should be in memory. All right, this is something that's going to have to be covered in greater detail in another video. Again, it's just too long. If I try to talk through all of this, we won't even get around to how that pattern is working. So here's where it starts. On the seventh day, 7 said 3 times. That's where it parallels the Garden of Eden. Naked and unashamed in the Garden of Eden right there. That is the point where we're starting from. All right, now what I'm going to do is just kind of jump through some things and tell you that you're welcome to do whatever you want to with this material. I've been working with it and finally figured out how this pattern's going to work. If you stick through, you'll see how this works. You see where it says, if Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold. Okay, I'm not treating any numbers as compounds anymore. This is a 7, and that's a 70, and that's a 7. Those 2 7s right there are grabbing a 70, and they're showing us how the process is going to work, and it's going to continue on that way. Right after that, we get right down into the analog farm. There's going to be some magical things happening. Stick through the video. Again, it's so big. Yeah, you know what? Your preacher doesn't know this. I guarantee it. Okay, now as we look at this, I'm going to go over it very quickly. I'm going to just kind of glaze over it. There's more detail than what I'm going to show you here, but in the interest of showing you how they're working it, what I'm going to do is just gather up the numbers in the simplest possible way. What I did is I searched 100 here just to get to this. This is the Adam. It's an analog farm. It's a lineage if you read it. It's called a lineage, but if you look at it, it starts doing things like having 900 and 800 years. Where else in the Bible do people live 900 or 800 years? Just right here, just this spot. Why is this important? We know that the 7 can go out and grab a 70. We saw that happen. It's like, okay, they're using the 7 to go out and grab other numbers. I bet they could do the same thing with the 3. How else could they do it? If I were to look at 800 right here, let's go ahead and... 800 is repeated exactly 7 times. And guess what? It's all right here. This is the only place where it is. If you took every one of these 800s and pretended like it was a 7, we've even got a 7 and a 7 right here. There isn't one there, but there is one right here. But look what else there is. So I'm going to just do this. I'm going to grab these. I'm going to say that every time the 800 is there, I'm going to grab the number that's with it. So we got a 7, 15, 40, 30, 90, 5, yeah, right there. Okay, so updated, this is our list. We now have a 3, 5, 7, 12, 15, 30, 40, 70, 90. But wait, there's more. Go back to the 900. 900 also appears exactly 7 times. Should we treat it the same way? Yeah, absolutely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It appears somewhere else. Where it closes out, Noah. All the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Do you see the 900 and the 50? We're going to grab that 50. What else do we have up here? The 900s are with what? A 30, a 12, a 5, a 10, 60, and 2. So it's beginning to cross-reference 60 and 9. We're going to grab up all of those numbers and call them part of this green pool right here, simply because that 9 is acting like a 7 and saying, I'm going to go grab these. That's not a 960. That's a 900 and a 60 and a 9. That's very important. We'll see that. I've tried these all different ways. The numbers we're looking for are not the 900 and the 800. We're looking for the 60s and the 12s and the 30s, the numbers that appear with them. That's important to figure out. Okay, so very quickly our number list has grown into this: 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10, 12, 15, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 90, and then I put 800 and 900 down there just because they were used as 7s. They're not going to be used elsewhere. They were only used as surrogates, as a 7. Repeated by each one of them being repeated 7 times allowed them to go out and just branch out and grab up a bunch more numbers in a way that you should look at and kind of scratch your head over the years anyway. It's like, well, yeah, what's going on there? Yeah, process it. And if you're sharp, you will know that we're talking about that 3, 7, and 40 grid. You'll see the 3, 7, and 40 on there, but then all the other numbers that you think of, the 12, the 10s, the 15s, 30s, 56, all that kind of stuff. Yep. Do you see them? Do you see they're developing here? We've got first sin as going to be day 8. That's an advancement from 7 to 8. But then it doesn't go to 9. Yeah, there's still some work to be done here. It's very old code. But this is the only way you can do something with it. And if you do something with this number pool now, what I'm going to do is go look at a couple of other places in Genesis and show how they are replicating this. Remembering that, let's see here, how do I word this? What does this ultimately mean right here is Eden 7 is repeated 3 times. What this means is our conscious and inner self are in pure state. Conscious and inner self are in pure state. Okay, that's what that means right there. As a youngster, we have not yet started living life. 8, we have started living life. We're no longer in that conscious pure state. But all of this right here is going to reference back to that individual male, female, and actually it's male or female pure state. You have to specify. Let me show you how that works. Let me get into it. Right now, just take all of these numbers and say that they all mean that pure state. Naked, unashamed, in the Garden of Eden. I was that little kid. You were that little kid. We were not covered with life experiences yet. We were naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden. Here, there's another double roll. I want to show you some things going on. It's also like, a dictionary. I'm gonna tell you this is something you just have to think about and put your head into. You see the wicked right there in 8. Remember in the Sodom story, would you destroy the righteous with the wicked? And if you see in Genesis, wicked being repeated exactly 8 times puts it as that bad thing on the grid. That's what has to happen there. What about righteous? 12 times. So you know that righteous is a good thing. And right there in that one spot, it was said very specifically at that story 7 times right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that repeating staccato right there, that's saying, hey, count me. I mean something to you. The amount of times I appear tells you if I'm good or bad. Interesting, huh? Okay, so we see that. What about Sodom? That's why I got a 21 up there. Look at exactly 21 times. So 7 advances to 8 to bad. 20 advances to 21 to bad. But so far, I don't know what else does. 41 does not. That's an oddball thing. All right, I have to say at this point, all you can see is numbers so far. I would think that this would be very confusing. Like, okay, I see some numbers. What the hell is all that? Boy, I don't know how to say this. It's almost like I can show you what's going on, but first we have to learn this, then we have to learn this, then we have to learn this, then we use all those to put it together to understand this. It's very archaic stuff, and we're looking at it through our own modern biases. So and we also need to understand that it's a self-healing path that's built on the template of human life cycle and how a human heals. So there's certain things that are going to be consistent in here. Once you learn that, you begin to find things that are that way. And in observing what I'm doing, if you keep going through those numbers over and over again and see the repetition there, you can at once understand why we don't get it. We read it. They had it memorized. They could tell you this. They could tell you how many times something repeated. That's critical. There's a structure in the background of the Bible that's staggering. Okay, so what do we have here then? I need to continue on and show the collection of the numbers then, or the use of the numbers, how they get applied now in the story. In the story, that same location is going to be held in a 2 or a 3 or a 5 or a 7 or a 9 or a 10, one of these. That's how they're going to be repeating the template. Now, how do we had Adam and Eve, 3 and 7. All right, Adam and Eve, 3, 7. So we've got our conscious and inner self in pure state. Adam and Eve, 3 and 7. Do you see that? Stick with me. That'll make better sense as we move along. What I'm going to do is grab a 17 because it's important. The 17 comes from one of the stories in the flood. Hang on a sec, or one of the lines of 17. Okay, here's how it's being gathered up. In the 600th year of Noah's life, 600. 600 is repeated exactly 3 times. So if we treat that like the 7, now the 3 has just gone out and grabbed something. So that's a good number. Noah's life, Noah's repeated 41 times. That's that link between here and 41 times is how many times Marduk's name is said in the Babylonian Enuma Elish, he's got the same role as Noah does here. So that's an interesting one. Here, King James Version, Noah, 41 times. And here you can say I brought up the Enuma Elish, tablet 1 here, at a time when even the glories above had yet to be named, and unuttered was the word for the world which lay beneath. It was then that the first being Apsu, and the progenitor Tiamat. Okay, what do we have here? Marduk. 41 times. See the links? Second month, 2 is one of our numbers, isn't it? Yeah, we gathered up a 2 there, sure enough. So the 17th then, because it appears with all those other numbers, is going to be one we're going to gather up. But moreover, if we find the second time it appears, it says, and the ark rested on the 7th month on the 17th day of the month in the mountains of Ararat. So we see that the 7 is pointing to the 17th right there. Here, analogs. They're stacking up analogs. We know things like nirvana. Wow, the happy place. Yes. The kingdom of heaven within. Oh, you know what? I feel good. I'm free of all those things. If you interpret it, Canaan, the happy land, where you get to, the promised land. When you interpret it, those are all mental locations, not physical locations. What we have right here is numbers that are serving those same locations. Locations of inner peace, of, yeah, I'm not stressed and hurting and freaked out about life. I've put things at ease. That's what they all mean. So we come back here and we're going to put 17 on here. That is an important number. That 17 was gathered up. Okay, now let's go take a visit to the Sodom analog farm very quickly. I just want to show you how you can tell what they're doing. Okay, so if I pull up the story right here, what we're going to see is that Abram drew near and said, will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? This is when they're getting ready to go destroy the Sodom. Now, if you took out this entire 23 to 32 right there, it would be a fine story. You don't need this there. It doesn't change anything. So it's doing something weird. And here's how you can tell, because it's a staccato sounding read. Peradventure, that's what if. What if there are 50 righteous within the city? Will you destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous that are there? Far be it from you, after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and the righteous should be as the wicked. And the Lord says, if I find 50 righteous within the city down here, I will, if it shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. And it's going through this kind of a strange sort of a numbering thing. But if you look right here through the repeats, look at righteous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So righteous has been sent out now to do that role. What about Abraham? Abraham is said 5 times throughout here, and it ends down here at the bottom. So throughout here, this is an analog farm, and they're repeating things. The 50 is said 4 times. 4 is going to become a number that's important, because that was the one I struggled with to begin with. That one comes from the Babylonians. That's why there's some stuff going on in here that's kind of hard to put it all together. Anyway, 50 is said 4 times. You will also notice that the entire book of Genesis has 50 chapters exactly, and there's a reason for that. There's 50 steps. And okay, so what we're going to do is let's take a look at the numbers. 50, and then we've got to look at, there's a 5 and a 50 and a 40 and a 5 and a 40 and 40. So what we're going to see is that 5 was said 3 times, 50 is said 4 times, 40 is said twice, 30 twice, 20 twice, and 10 twice. So we're going to gather, what do we see there? 10, 20, 30, 40. We go back to our list. What do we have? We also gathered up that 4 there by 50 being said 4 times. So what do we have it all now? We've got the 5, which was said 3 times. 40, yeah, there it is, was repeated twice. 54 times. And then we've got a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. and our 5 right there. Yeah, you see that they're using the same technique in a different place to kind of double up on grabbing these in case you forgot them somewhere else as you're moving through there. Now, okay, what I'm going to do now is there's like 16 numbers right there that we just gathered up, 17 actually. But what I've done now is I've gone into the internet and did just a search on how many repeats of words in the Bible. Okay, we don't know it, but this is why we see the repeats. What I've done is I've taken all those numbers, 2 through 90 there, and I've just listed them down and then looked up how many times they repeat. 2 is repeated 835 times in the Bible. 3, 485. 4, 328. 5, 435. 7, 463. Okay, at some point, this is the pool of numbers that we are seeing. It's not just 3, 7, 40, 12. Those kind of stand out. But all of these numbers, the 12, 17, 20, 30, 40, 50, when I'm going to get done down here, I'm going to add them up. I'm going to say that these 60, 70, I don't know. I couldn't find an answer for that one, but it's used many times. The other ones that we do know, there's 16 numbers there. Those 16 numbers are repeated a total of 3,973 times, almost 4,000 times in the Bible, just those 16 numbers right there. Do we see patterns? Yeah, we do. We should see. That's why things keep popping up like that. Okay, that's just fun to know. So there's something going on with those numbers, isn't there? Okay, if we have enough things in place, what I want to do is start showing those in use. If the template is repeating, then we're going to have an Adam and Eve restart someplace. If we started off as Adam and Eve, naked, unashamed in the garden, where do we appear next? We're going to appear next on chapter 12. Interesting that it's chapter 12, isn't it? 12 is a good number. We are Abram and Sarai. Now, if I were to, first of all, we know that it's in chapter 12. Sarai's name is repeated 17 times in Genesis. Sarai represents pure state. And look, barren, had no child. Yeah, that's before we had experience with anything. Okay, and Abram, let me make sure I cover that. Barren, had no child. Remember when we had sin, we were going to give pain, we were going to have pain in childbirth all the time. That represents the cyclical pain. Every time something emerges from you that you've judged in life, you're going to have problems. What this is saying right here, it was barren and had no children. That means it was before that time. So we have to understand that we have to interpret everything. Nothing sounds like it sounds. Nothing is like it sounds. It needs to go into the psyche, the mind, the soul. So naked, unashamed in the Garden of Eden means myself is uncovered with anything. I have nothing that I am covered with, and I'm in a happy place. Barren, without children, means that I have not taken on anything. It's the same thing. 59. 50 and 9 added together. We got pure state right there. So that's how they're showing a repeat. You got a male and a female component numbered 17 and 59. Does that make sense? How else could you decode something here? Okay, so that's just one place. Let's keep looking. We'll see that again. Okay, so let's just look to make sure we're staying on course here. This is what it's going to look like. We have Adam and Eve, 3 and 7, male and female component, and a 3 and a 7 from the list. We've got Abram and Sarai, male and female component, 59. There's a 50 and 9 added together, and a 17 from the list. We can add them up. In fact, 17 is what? 10 and 7. Okay, 12 is 10 and 2. However, 13 is not okay. 13's a bad one. So, yeah, there's something not quite dialed in yet. There's still some parts of the code that are mysterious. But anyway, that's where we have it. So these two represent a starting point that would be a pure male-female state. Okay, now let's find another one. I know where one is in use. There's a 40 that is actually not being collected, but is being used. It is verse 20 in chapter 25. Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife. Isaac was 40. That's pure state. Rebekah. Rebekah's repeated exactly 30 times. So let's put that on our list. Now, Isaac was 40. It was also verse 20 in chapter 25. 25 good? It would be a 20 and a 5. 25 may be good. At any rate, it would continue to cross-reference up in this manner. But let's make sure we know how many times Isaac's name was also said. All right, Isaac is said 80 times. So really, he was 40 years old, but his name was repeated 80 times. 30. And we see our... Do we have an 80? I don't know. Where does the 80 come from? Now, when I do the actual analog collecting, I'm going to be highly detailed. So right now, I'm just kind of bouncing around, grabbing a few things that I know are there. The 80 is repeated exactly 3 times, so it's a good number. And we have an 80 here with a 7, so that's good. An 80 and a 2, and an 80 and a 2. So that's 7, the 3, the 80. Yeah, the 80 is a good number, and 80 has been repeated 3 times itself. By default, 80 is one of the analogs. Yeah, we're good. All right, doing something that just continues to illustrate what we have going on as we get into the book of Job. What we see right off the beginning here is that he's a man who's blameless and all of that, but how does he start? He has, what was born to him, 7 sons and 3 daughters. 7 sons and 3 daughters. So there we have our 7 and 3 male and female component at the beginning of the story. What does that look like on our list here? All right, here it is. We've got our Isaac and Rebekah, the 40, 80, 30, all from here. Male and female, sons and daughters, male and female, from Job, 7 and 3. That's like Adam and Eve, 3 and 7. So you see there's a male and a female component, each along the way, and all of them are either somehow designated or repeated in the background enough times that it's going to be from this list that lets you know that it's a pure state. Now, as long as this is like the easiest way I can show you this stuff. It's really thick and there's so many parts to it. It's like, you know what? Let's just learn the template first without the numbering system, just the template, because the numbering system adds to it. But this shows how the complexity is in the background of the numbering of the repeating of the pattern being held in a numbering system that is really hard to see. Okay. What do I need to do with this video? All right, what I want to do is go back to Genesis, King James Version, and just start looking at some random things here. Naked. It's said 9 times. 9 is a good number. But 4 of them are just naked. 5 of them are nakedness. So 9 is a good number, but so is 4 and so is 5. This helps us combine the things. And I'm realizing now that this is how they're blending the old with the new. There was a 4-count system from Babylonian works that the Jews were using, but the Jews had to beef theirs up because the Jewish religion became huge compared to the Babylonian religion, so the stories kept going. Anyway, we can see here by just pulling up nakedness, if we knew how, we could tell in the story, if we understood what it was, if people thought naked was a bad thing, you could snicker and know that no, it's a good thing. It's a spiritual thing. What is wine? Wine is said 12 times. Wine is a good thing. Wine is not alcohol in the physical world. Wine is a good way to feel. Drunken, well, that's just one. Let's see. How about tent? There's actually 10th in there too, so, Well, let's just say that, 10th. 10th is said 3 times. Let's look at some names. Cain. 23. That's a good thing. Enoch. 10 times. That's a good thing. Grab another one here. Lamech, did I do that one? Lamech, exactly 10 times. Oh, who else do we have here? Jubal. Jubal only one time. Let's see. Lamech has 2 wives, Adah and Zillah. Those should be a good and a bad. Let's see. Adah. 8 times. There you go. That's bad. Let's hope Zillah's good then. 3 times. Okay, there you go. Bingo magic. Do you see me navigating that? They could do that up here. Now, when you read this story, regardless of what happens, you can look at that name count and go, this is the bad person, no matter what they're doing. This is the good person, no matter what's happening. Okay, that'll help you understand how to, it plays out in the mind. It has to play out in the mind, and it has to be known better than what anybody knows it today. This would be known in the background. Obviously, it would. I want to just show a couple of comparisons between this and the Enuma Elish. It still surprises me that the Babylonian material, this is where that 4 comes from. I'm not quite sure what's there. Also, I have to say that the Enuma Elish was fragmentary. It was on clay tablets, so it had some missing pieces to it. So the counts we have to be careful with. There might be something that's not right there. But there's enough there intact that we can see that there is definitely the same numbering system. Let me go ahead and pull it up and we'll take a look at what we have here. The Enuma Elish name count. There's some things that I want to point out very specifically. Shelter, 3. 7, 3. This is odd because 7 is said 3 times, and in Genesis, 7 is said 3 times in the first creation story, which is not the original one. Demon is said 4 times. However, Babylon, which is a good thing, is said 4 times. So there might be some kind of conflict here. 3 is said 5 times. That sounds good. Lamu and Lahamu, that's a 5 in the Jewish material. That's good. Lamu and Lahamu is the same as Adam and Eve. This is like a variant. That would be like my name, Dan and Danielle. Dan and Danielle, his conscious and his inner being. Yeah, 5, pure state. Anu power, that's good. Something good. Net is 7. Sleep is 7. I don't know what sleep is necessarily. Net is something that the evil was caught in. So net is a good thing. Lady Huber is the evil force that brings evil. So you would see that it's following that same pattern. Anunnaki 10. Ijiji 11. Night 13. Yeah, that would be probably bad. Fate 17. Kingu 17. These numbers come that you look at them and go, damn it, those are right there in the Jewish material. Downstream later, they're right here. Marduk 41 compared with Noah, Torah, Genesis 41 repeats. Yeah, you know what? There's something going on here, isn't there? We fumble. I'm fumbling in the computer, slowly going through it. But it's that thick. And it cross-references. And when the number comes up, it's going to be repeated a certain amount of times that is also a good number. So it's like, boy, this is just a tight thing. We don't know it. We think we're pretty clever. All right, so there's something much deeper layered in the Bible than what is on the surface. Really, the surface is just carrying it. It's not understanding what is in the deeper teaching, the templates, the interactive parts. So in this video, it's not really part 2. I wanted to kind of show that because it was like, boy, maybe people can kind of mentally hook into what I'm seeing right here. I can kind of show that process. The analog collection still has to happen. There's still another farm up there that hasn't been gone through that differs from these two. And that's where I've struggled before. And then there's things being collected around the flood as well, the numbers there, like the 17 and whatnot. So, and if you were to go look at the sizes of the ark, guess what? They're all from this list right here. Yeah, the ark is made of righteousness. Yeah, how many times covenant is said, how many times righteousness, all of that. It's very tight. It really is. And if you don't look, you'll never see it. But if you do look, it's like, whoa, there's something here I don't even know is there. Okay, next video, I will get into, I think, not the analog collection, but the actual, just the template, the phases, from creation up to the end of chapter 6. That's the human life cycle. Plus, there's instructions in there on how to navigate the material, and a mental hierarchy. So, all right. Hope the video was fun and interesting. Sometimes I think that, I mean, if you look at stuff like this, I would think that it would be kind of probably strange to look at. I've got my head hooked into it now, but there was a time I would have looked at this and thought, what is that? I don't even get what's going on. Now, it does seem to me that it's not complex. It's actually just very foreign to us. If you can play it out in the mind, if it all fits up there and it works without technology, only with memory, well, you know, they were able to do that and we're not. So anyway, okay. That's why we don't have access to this. You can look and see what I'm doing and go, yeah, you're not going to know that. No, you wouldn't, not unless you do something like what I'm doing. But there's a lot of analysis that has to happen. But then outside of that numbering grid and everything, there's a basic core template to follow. The numbering system is for a larger purpose. So I think what we need to do is just do the human life template without the numbering system to begin with. And that's what I'll do in the next video. Yeah. Chapters 1 through 6, human life cycle, up to the point where it's time to destroy. And I'll stop there without putting the numbering in. But this video, it's going to show how that repeating is going to be happening in a pretty thick way. This might just prepare your head, give you a chance to think about it before it gets here. Okay, hope the video was fun and interesting. Hope to hear some comments. Take care. See you in the next video.